times we have engaged with you on these questions of the economy, you have been very concerned about the employment subsector. From what you are hearing across board, and I invited each guest to begin with their success story. Even in that, imagine what you are hearing, and we are going to go into the deeper questions of what is broken and what has to be fixed. What are you identifying immediately?
Thank you very much, Samson. Good morning, and good morning to my fellow panelists and listeners. Indeed, when you look at the issues that have been outlined right here, you can tell that the challenges are the same regardless of the sector that you are looking at. And the bottom line really is that as a country, we have not been very intentional about our industrialization drive, and particularly the sources of the growth that we record in this country. So when you listen to blue skies, poultry farmers, these are very low-hanging fruits that as a country, if we are very intentional about creating jobs and adding value to our agricultural produce, these are not very difficult things to do. And so when you ask, what are the major challenges that these practitioners face? A number of factors have been identified, but principally you find that a lot of it has to do with cost of credit, for example. If you ask yourself at the moment, what is the going cost of credit? We are looking at about 32%. And so if a poultry farmer is borrowing at a 32% rate from the commercial bank, certainly it will be quite difficult. The infrastructure that is required, you need energy, you need some basic infrastructure like roads, some basic infrastructure like water. I'm looking at the poultry farming sector, for example. And all these, you can tell that although as a country, we are investing in capital expenditure, building roads and all, we have not been intentional in linking productive activities to some of these infrastructural development. And that is something that policymakers ought to take a critical look at. When you look at the textile industry, the key challenge they face is competition from imports. Because we know that, for example, if you look at GTP, they have the reputation of producing quality products. But the moment they invest in innovation and put their products out there, you have traders who are taking their samples abroad to go and bring in similar patterns at very cheap rates. And the question you ask is, how are people able to produce at such lower rates? Importers are able to bring them in, pay duty, and still be able to sell at a lower price than local producers. And the bottom line is the business environment. The environment within which these firms are operating is quite difficult. So they would produce, but at the end of the day, their costs are high. So even imports come in at a cheaper rate. And most of these imports, honestly, some also come in on some of the products that they bring in. So these are the issues. I think that if we are very serious about employment creation, the very low-hanging fruits are agro-processing. What are we doing? And light manufacturing, like textiles. And you look at the poultry sector, the reputation is there. On average, every Ghanaian wants a locally produced chicken because they know that it is of good quality.
That's right.
You don't find our birds as huge as turkeys and other things because of all the chemicals that they are given. But the demand exists, but people cannot afford because the farmers are also producing at very high cost. So these are some of the issues that I believe the government needs to tackle.
Right.
And particularly looking at the challenge that the global environment is in, I think that it is time for our government to take a break, pause, and look at the key issues that are affecting these very light manufacturing, agro-process activities that we can easily turn around in a year or two to make some meaningful gains in the employment generation, and even on our imports bill, and also as a country in terms of revenue generation and all that.
How much of the revival of this broke economy is tied to an indigenous industry, industrialization?
So when you are talking about industrialization, for the context of Ghana, we are not looking at very sophisticated things like car assembly plants and all that. Those are good. But you also know that based on the way the economy is structured, we do not have a comparative advantage in those. That does not mean that we cannot venture into those activities because of technology and all that. But the very low-hanging fruits are, what are we doing to agricultural produce? Are we adding value? If you look at a country like Kenya, for example, horticulture, globally, roses and all the things you find abroad are exported from Kenya. Why can't Ghana tap into its own resources and also do certain things that we are comparative?
In our supermarkets in Ghana, we are consuming South Africa groceries, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Yes. Exactly. You have what we call it, carrots. You have lettuce and all other things, cherry tomatoes that are all imported. And so you see, when you look at all these things, it makes you ask, are we very, very serious about the drive to create jobs locally, about the drive to add value, the drive to be self-sufficient? These are issues that we need to. And when you look at the example of the Nigerian situation, you can tell that it is not rocket science. It is something that can be done. Over time, when you look at the interventions in the agricultural sector, it has always been giving fertilizer, free fertilizer to farmers and all. Can we be a bit more intentional as to, for example, targeted credits at affordable rates to smallholder farmers, lend them to large-scale producers, assist them so that they are able to build capacity, produce, and be competitive on the market? These are some of the major challenges that needs to be addressed.